Welcome back to my channel, everybody. I'm super excited for today's video. Today I'm here with Thrill Seeker episode 2. Thrill Seeker is a series that I just started on this channel where I read thriller books, and it's a full dedicated reading vlog for one thriller book each episode. And we just kind of see, like, you know, are there any thrills? Are there any chills? Like, what's happening with it, kind of. I love this series. I only did it once, but it was very fun. It was kind of like throwback to old booktube for me when people would do really dedicated reading vlogs, and it was just like a really good time. So it's pretty much a series that I just started to try to find the best thrillers, and this is episode 2. So I am actually coming at you with a brand new release. It's February right now and I'm filming this, so this actually hasn't even been released yet. I was lucky enough to receive a audio arc, but I am going to be listening to The Golden Couple by Greer, Hendricks, and Pekkanen, which comes out March 8th. I, off NetGalley, got a audio arc, so I am going to be listening to that. I definitely prefer having physical copies, I think, especially when I'm doing dedicated reading vlogs. I don't know why, I just like it better, I think. I guess I've never done a dedicated reading vlog without a physical copy, so we'll see how this goes. I guess it shouldn't make that big of a difference. I'm gonna start it and just kind of see how it goes. It's actually a pretty quick listen. I think it's only like 10 hours. Yeah, it's only about 10 hours. So it's actually not a very long audiobook. I guess that's about average. That seems really low for me for some reason. I usually listen to audiobooks on 2x speed, but because NetGalley's audio arcs are always so bad and echoey, I will probably end up listening on 1.5, 1.75. We'll just have to see how the audio sounds, because sometimes they're fine, but most of the time they're really echoey. And if you listen on anything faster than like 1.5, 1.75, depending, it's just like, you can't even understand it. If you don't know, I'm going to read the Golden Couple synopsis. I'm just going to read the synopsis straight. And if you're interested, you can read along with me, or you can, I don't know, read it all and then come back to this video and see if your thoughts align with whatever my thoughts on it end up being. But this is going to be a fun little dedicated reading vlog to the Golden Couple, and we can see kind of how we feel about it. So the synopsis says, if Avery Chambers can't fix you in 10 sessions, she won't take you on as a client. Her successes are phenomenal. She helps people overcome everything from domineering parents to assault, and almost absorb the emptiness she sometimes feels since her husband's death. Marissa and Matthew Bishop seem like the golden couple until Marissa cheats. She wants to repair things, both because she loves her husband and for the sake of their 8-year-old son. After a friend forwards an article about Avery, Marissa takes a chance on this maverick therapist who lost her license due to controversial methods. Interesting. When the Bishops glide through Avery's door and Marissa reveals her infidelity, all three are set on a collision course, because the biggest secrets in the room are still hidden, and it's no longer simply a marriage that's in danger. So it sounds very interesting to me. I'm very excited to see what it's all about. Very interested in the whole, like, she got her license revoked thing. I think that's interesting. I just think it sounds very intriguing, so we will see. I love a good psych thriller. This mixes domestic and psych thriller together. I think it has a lot of potential. I have a lot to do around the house today, so I was thinking we can just get started today, which is exciting. But let's just get into reading it. I'm very excited. I hope you are too, and let's just see where this goes. I did just take some notes, because my camera was in the other room while I was cleaning. I guess I could just have my camera out the whole time and just press record every time I have a thought, or I could just wrap up like each couple of chapters. I don't know, but I listened to quite a bit of it. So chapter 1 is the therapist's perspective, and then we get the wife's perspective, and so far we've only gone back and forth between those two perspectives. I don't know if we'll ever get the husband Matthew's perspective, but right now we're going between the wife Marissa and the therapist Avery. In the first chapter, we find out that Avery lost her license, and she actually likes that she lost her license because she still is legally like a counselor or something. She's just not a licensed therapist anymore. But because of that, she can use her own methods. So she actually likes it better because she doesn't have to like cling to the set like rules. Like at the beginning of their, I don't know why I'm whispering. This is literally like spoiler filled. yeah, I forget that these videos are like for people who mainly have already read the book. Like that's the whole point, right? But like at the beginning of the session when they take the tequila shot and stuff, I was like, damn, like that seems so weird. But I forgot that if she's not a licensed therapist, I don't think that there's any like set rules that you like really have to follow. So I don't know. That could be a little like red herring. Like it could be like, oh, it's trying to make you think she's like crazy and like lost her license, or it's like she actually is like kind of bonkers. I don't know. Ever since she lost her license with her own method, she has like a crazy high success rate. Just like the synopsis said. How she deals with her clients is she goes through like 10 sessions and she has like very set like what happens for each session. So I actually like wrote it down so I wouldn't forget because I feel like it might be important later. So the 10 sessions are confession, disruption, escalation, revelation, devastation, confrontation, exposure, the test, reconciliation, and promises. In chapter 1, we find out, obviously, just like the synopsis says, the wife cheated. She brings the husband in under the guise that they're going to talk about their son getting bullied at school or something. I don't know how he felt for that, because I would be like, why do we need therapy for that? But whatever. And then she gets there, she sits down and she's like, oh, we're actually here to talk about the fact that I cheated on you with this guy from the gym. And he's like, the gym? And I feel him on that because I was like, damn. Some of my other thoughts were that the wife seemed really scared, but I couldn't tell if she seemed scared, like, are you scared of your husband or are you just scared because you, like, fucked up? You know what I mean? Like, those are two very different types of scared. And then the husband got like instantly mad, and the therapist even noted that. She was like, wow, it's really interesting because most people are kind of in shock first when they find something out like that, but he just went straight into like being mad. So it's like, ooh, who are you, Machu? Oh, chapter 2. So then we're from the wife's perspective. So they instantly go into just like their first session pretty much, because the therapist is like, Avery is like, yeah, I'll take you guys on as clients. I decided, like, you intrigue me. And then they instantly kind of just go and start doing their first session, which is chapter 2, but from the wife's perspective. And I thought this was interesting. Like, so the therapist like had the husband like looked at the husband and was like, tell me about like the best sex you've ever had. And he was like, I don't even want to think about like, you know, good times that I've had with her right now. Like, I don't want to think about that. Like, I don't want to think about like doing that stuff with her. And the therapist is like, no, I don't mean with your wife. That's fucked up. Ooh, it's like cringy to even think about being in that situation. Ugh, I would die. I would actually die. Then the husband goes on and like tells his story, right? And then the wife says, I wrote the quote down because I was like, bitch, what the fuck? She said, I've never heard this story before. I guess we're both keeping secrets. Because he didn't tell you explicitly about a time, like, where he slept with another woman and nutted 3 times in one night. Like, what? At what point would that come up? Like, what is that, like a date 3 conversation? And you're just like, oh, let me tell you about this time that I, like, fucked this girl in grad school. What do you mean we're both keeping secrets? Like, you cheating and him not divulging his explicit sexual history to you? Bitch, we are not the same. Then we're on chapter 3, and this was actually interesting. So this is where we learned about like why she lost her license. My initial like hypothesis, right, about this book was like, oh, I bet she did something like so batshit and she lost her license, and then she's kind of turning those like crazy methods into something. But I think that's like what they wanted you to think, right? But already in chapter 3, we learned why she lost her license. She had this patient who was dealing with a narcissistic and abusive wife at the time. And he was having a lot of anxiety attacks and he couldn't figure out why. And she helped him realize that it was most likely his narcissistic wife and that they weren't a good match, and it was causing him a lot of like turmoil. So he wasn't like seeing it or whatever. And so she like snuck into his house one night, which like, that is, do not get me wrong, that is, that's bad. But she snuck into her client's house one time, and if I'm not mistaken, recorded him fighting with his wife so that he could see from an outside perspective how she was being manipulative and gaslighting him and being, you know, narcissistic and turning everything around. And so she could like, he could see that from an outside perspective. And then like, I remember her saying like, luckily like he dropped the the criminal charges on breaking and entering. So she didn't get in legal trouble for that, but she did lose her license, which I feel like is not as bad as I expected, which sounds bad, but I expected it to be like wild. But I guess if it was anything worse, it would probably be like criminal, right? Like, I don't know what I was thinking in my head, like she was torturing a patient or something. But I guess then she would probably be like in prison, not just like, oh, let's just take this little license away. One of my thoughts though was that I said, I wonder if Cameron's ex-wife was actually narcissistic and crazy though. Like, I know that she said like, oh, she recorded it or whatever so he could see, but part of me is thinking like, what if I said, what if the therapist is creating more problems for people than they already have, or like trying to dig deeper than it even needs to be? Like, oh, he's having panic attacks, and instead of it just being like the stress of life, it's like she's going to manipulate it into being something more than that, just so she has like something else to fix, or I don't know why, but that was one of my initial thoughts. So that's kind of something I'm keeping in the back of my head, is like, but are you kind of twisting things? Because I think therapists can do a lot. They could be very manipulative if they wanted to be, and there are a lot of psychological thrillers that prove that. So that's kind of one thought I'm keeping in the back of my head as the book goes on. Marissa and Matthew, the therapist like drove by their house to see like what their house looked like and stuff at like 2 a.m. and was just like out here stalking them. It's wild to me. That is wild to me. And like one of the lights was on and she was like, ooh, I wonder which one of them like can't sleep, like all this stuff. It's just like very stalkerish. So she gives me some really weird vibes. Chapter 4 is from Marissa's point of view. She's out here with her whole ass own business. Her assistant is so weird. I forget her name. I don't know if it's her assistant, but the lady that she like, the woman that she hired to like work with her at the boutique, she's like training her as like an apprentice. I'm just gonna say assistant. Marissa like left her earrings out and the assistant put them on so that she wouldn't lose them. So I get really weird vibes from her right away. And then chapter 5 is literally really just talking about like the therapist's like home life. So her husband died. It wasn't any like unusual, weird like circumstance, you know, like a usual thriller. It wasn't like died of like unusual causes. He died from a brain tumor. She has a stepdaughter named Lana, who she's still really close with actually, so that's good. They have a cute relationship that we saw a little bit of in this chapter. And Lana is really excited because she just started dating somebody. I put down that his name was Doug, but I don't know why that doesn't seem right now that I'm reading it. But anyways, Lana's really excited, and I feel like they focused on it a little bit, they focused on it a lot. Like her saying, oh, I have this date, like with this new guy. Like, it makes me wonder, like, is it gonna be like the guy from the gym? No, that's too close. I'm getting crazy. Plus, that guy would probably be old as fuck, right? Compared to Lana, who is her stepdaughter, who's like in college, I think. And then we also find out that Avery, the therapist, Avery almost left her husband before he got diagnosed with a brain tumor. So she was literally like in her bed looking at like apartments to move into when he had a seizure, and that's how they found out that he has a brain tumor. So she stayed with him until obviously he passed, but she was like, she said something at the end of the chapter that was like, when he died, I wasn't grieving because I had already lost him in my heart. So that was very sad, but very interesting. It's interesting to see her have a familial relationship, like with Lana and whatnot, because I feel like we were supposed to see the therapist as kind of like the bad guy, but when you see her interact with her stepdaughter and stuff, it's just interesting to see her in a less professional setting. Like, it's interesting to see her home life and her be more personable. It's very interesting. I don't have any like crazy thoughts. I mean, I just spent like 20 minutes talking, so I guess I do. That's kind of the rundown of what's happening so far. This whole vlog is not going to be me like talking about like each chapter like I just did. I just think the like beginning couple chapters are important to like talk about in a vlog to kind of like set the scene for what's happening and give you my like initial thoughts on who everybody is. The whole vlog isn't going to be me like talking about like, oh, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened in chapter, you know, whatever. From here on forward, I will just give you my like thoughts on what's happening. Okay, so I'm on chapter, ooh, hold on, I don't actually know what chapter I'm on. 22% of the way through. Not a lot has happened. They had like another session with Avery, and we find out about Natalie, who is this woman that Matthew like dated for a year in college or something, and she still like is really prevalent like in their lives. Like she calls Matthew all the time about stuff, and like she made her kid go to like the same school that their kid does, and so suspicious to me. Oh, we found out a little bit more background about Avery's like tactics. So we found out that like the first client that she ever did her 10 session thing with was like kind of an accident. It was about this woman who she overheard her boss, she worked at a pharmaceutical company, and she overheard her boss talking about how like 40 people out of 10,000 who take this medication end up dying, but they were gonna like release it anyway and like send it to the FDA anyway and like skew the numbers. And so this woman was obviously having like panic attacks and stuff, and Avery just like, she was like, oh, you need to like tell somebody, but the client didn't want to, just because like, I mean, even in real life we kind of know what happens to people who like mess with big pharma. Like, she's like, no, I can't do that, like you won't see me again and stuff. And so then Avery takes it into her own hands and decides to call herself. And that's when she realizes that taking some of the choices away from your client and taking the decision out of their hands of what to do with their life. No, you need to do this, you need to do that, because most therapists are just like, oh, what do you think about that? And they allow the client to like come to their own conclusions about stuff. But Avery's approach is more like, she gets really involved in their lives, and then she kind of makes the decisions for them and kind of tells them what to do. So we know that about her like 10-step thing or 10 session thing. That's kind of where it came from. And her like excessive involvement in patients' lives is kind of like, that's where that came from. But we also find out that ever since then, she has been being harassed and stalked and threatened by the pharmaceutical company, because she called an anonymous line, but they found out who it is. And so they've been like stalking her, and that's why she's so paranoid, because it always talks about how she has like this really good security system and she's always scared of everything. And we find out that that's why, is because the pharmaceutical company has been like threatening her, and like even like had a guy like show up at her house at one point and stuff and say like you're not what we want, like we just want the name of the employee who told you this. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you that. We just kind of got more background on everybody and a little bit more about like why everybody is the way that they are. Yeah, that's about it. There were like, during one of their sessions, she did get, Marissa, the wife, got like a delivery of roses sent to her, and they can't figure out like who they were from, and she thinks that it was maybe from the guy from the gym, but then they're thinking like, I don't know, that seems a little too easy, right? So then I'm wondering who else it would be. That's the only kind of mysterious thing right now. Besides that, I feel like there's not a big mystery element. Like, we're not like, oh, when you first go into the book, you're curious about like, why did she lose her license? It explains in chapter 3. Where the whole 10 session thing come from, it explains with like her first patient who she did that with, and she thoroughly explains it. Why does she like to get so involved in her and like the life of her clients and stalk them? Like, it is creepy and weird, but she did already explain it. The wife, what was her secret? Right away we're told that she cheated. Like, there's not a lot that I am curious about in regards to the actual plot, or in regards to like what's happened so far. Like, there's nothing where I'm like, oh, I wonder this, except maybe I guess who sent the roses. So I am now 33% done. So I got another 11% through. I kind of feel the same way that I did at 20%. Like, I don't have any thoughts. There's not really anything like major happening. We're just getting to know like all these characters a little bit better. No like other big secrets have come out. There was like a point where a man that Avery was like dating or had dated, she like had him over again, and she caught him like coming out of her office, which was really, really sketchy. And so she's assuming that he's part of like the whole pharmaceutical thing. And then she met her stepdaughter's new boyfriend, and it's not Doug, it's Greg. I don't know why I wrote that it was Doc. Oh, that's funny. They focused a lot of time on her, like, meeting the boyfriend, so my assumption is that there's something there. I feel like there's gonna be something there, like something kind of like sketchy. Marissa and Matthew, like, nothing else is really going on, like, honestly. They like went on a date because Avery told them to, and it kind of reignited their spark, so they're like kind of doing well again. They're kind of doing better as a couple, and that's about it. Again, there's not really anything that's like really grasping my attention. I will say while I'm here actually that I have all of their other books. So The Wife Between Us, I read. I gave 3 stars. I thought this was pretty average domestic thriller. Then their second book, An Anonymous Girl. I actually have not read this yet. It's on my like 22 books that I want to read in 2022. It's on that. I really would like to read it. I know Hoopla has it. Yeah, I don't know. This one, I don't know how I feel yet. And then I actually got an ARC. I think this came out in March 2020, but I think I actually got the ARC in 2019 of You Are Not Alone. And this one, I don't actually remember my rating for this one. Let me see. I gave You Are Not Alone 4 stars. What did I say about this one? I said I liked it way better than The Wife Between Us. I do remember that. The Wife Between Us was pretty boring to me. I found the story a little unrealistic and far-fetched. Some coincidences seemed a little bit too convenient and it just took some of the rush out. What? I don't even know what I mean by that. But yeah, coincidences seeming a little too convenient for sure. I did not see the main twist coming, but once it hit, I didn't really feel anything, I guess. Interesting enough to have kept my attention, and I still recommend it, but just wasn't entirely captivating. And then I talk about how I still haven't read An Anonymous Girl. But it will be very interesting to see how I feel about The Golden Couple and An Anonymous Girl. I just thought that I would talk about those a little bit, just to like talk about my history with Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks. So my favorite one so far was You Are Not Alone. I gave this 4 stars. Looking back though, like, to be honest, like, thinking back on this, like, not cover, on this, like, book, I don't remember it actually being, like that great. 2020 was really about the start of when I read this, is when I really started getting back into reading. And I've read a lot of books since then, and I've done a lot of, like, reading experiments since then. And I feel like since I have really acquired my own reading taste. And so thinking back on this one, I feel like it had a lot of things that I actually don't really look for in thrillers nowadays. So I don't know, like, my history with them as a writing duo is very average. I am excited to see how I feel about this book, The Golden Couple. So we will see. But like I said, I just feel like there's not a lot going on right now and not a ton happening. And there are definitely people I'm suspicious of and things I'm curious about. But like I said earlier, it just doesn't have that overarching, like, what's going on? This is so mysterious. I can't wait to figure this out. It's just really about a couple in therapy with some weird secrets and stuff. My hope is that there's going to be, like, because there's not a lot going on, I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of pretty major twists. I'm hoping for, like, 3. Let's say 3 twists. That's going to be my prediction. 3 twists. I'm hoping for about 3 twists that have me kind of like, okay, like, that's interesting. Okay, I am literally in the middle of cooking dinner right now, but I'm listening to the audiobook, and we do have the very first plot twist. There is no guy from the gym. The guy that she ended up sleeping with was actually like one of the people that they grew up with. I don't know if I ever said, but Marissa and Matthew, like, grew up together. Like, they met when they were like 15 and 14 or something, and they didn't like instantly get together or anything. But they, like, worked together and then weren't and were and weren't. They kind of been, like, off and on the whole, like, relationship until obviously they got married. But I guess the guy that she slept with wasn't even somebody from the gym. She said there is no man from the gym. So it was somebody that they grew up with. Okay, see? Okay, so that's, like, the first plot twist. Let's see if I can get the 2 other ones that I need for this to be a banging novel. Okay, I only read a little bit more, but I feel like I'm starting to have like a theory. So her assistant, Polly, the weird one who was like wearing her earrings and trying to like become the wife and stuff, the therapist just walked into, well, first of all, the husband was like, oh, or the wife was like, I think I need to fire her. And the husband was like, no, like just keep her on for like a little bit more, like super suspicious. Like, why would you even care? And then the therapist went to go check out the wife's store for the first time. And the husband was there, like in the back, like whispering, talking super close with the assistant, I think. And then he was like, oh, he went to go like pick up roses that were just sitting there. And he was like, oh, I like meant to drop these off for her, but for my wife, but I forgot that she's not here. But he was holding like a piece of paper that we don't know what it is and stuff. And they were whispering like so quietly in the back that it's like really suspicious to me. So my thought is that they're having an affair or something's going on there. Like Polly is the assistant. So Polly and Matthew, my thought is something is going on there. And then also I think that the roses were a lie because Marissa, the wife, like talked, the first time that she ever talked about the store, she talked about like, oh, I purposely did it so that there were like, I did my decor so that there's random like flowers everywhere. And we already know that because she said it. So it's like a small little detail that like, was he there to drop off roses or did he just see them and then he picked them up? Because she already said in one of her POVs like, oh, I like to keep flowers everywhere around my shop. We'll see. Okay, it looks like it's the same day because yes, my hair's the same, I'm wearing the same shirt, but it's actually been like 2 days actually since I have updated anything for this particular vlog. And I continued listening to, well, I'm listening to right now, the book. I didn't listen to any yesterday. I was super wrong. Like right after they talked about the note and everything, the assistant and the husband kind of got less suspicious to me. And they like showed what the note said, and the note said something like, what did it say? That was like 2 days ago, I can't remember. It said something about like, you can't get rid of me that fast or something like that. It was for the wife, and she thinks that it's going to be the, like the guy from their childhood or whatever, the guy that she slept with. They think that she thinks that it's from that guy. Our therapist lady is still getting stalked by the pharmaceutical company, like pretty bad now actually. The therapist found out that the wife slept with somebody that they had like previously known, so the therapist did find that out, but besides that, like nothing. I'm like at about 50% now. That's about it. We did have that one main twist, which I talked about, which was like finding out that the guy that the wife slept with was a childhood friend. That was interesting. That was a twist, but I'm wondering how it's going to like even affect the story though. Like, yes, it was very like, ooh, that's shady, but like, what's it bringing to the table, you know? I know that I left off saying that I think the husband's sketchy with the, oh, that's what else happened actually. So the wife ended up getting like frustrated by her assistant after the whole note thing, and she was being like kind of sketchy with the husband and stuff. So right after that, she fires her, and then she instantly regrets it because she like needed her to work. Funny how that works. And so she goes to her house or whatever to ask her to come back, and she has a ton of roommates and stuff. And I think I mentioned that like the assistant was staying at the store. She like said she had a mouse problem, so she had to stay at the store. So then when Marissa goes to her house to be like, hey, like sorry for like snapping at you or whatever, I really want you to come back and work for me, she's like, oh, like is everything okay with like the rodent problem or whatever? And her assistant roommate is like, we never had a rodent problem. And so now Marissa's like, why was she staying at the place? Why did she lie to me? Why did she tell me that there was this huge rodent problem? So that's sketchy too. I feel like so much is going on in this thriller. Like I almost feel like it's trying to maybe do too much. Like we have everything with the assistant and her getting stalked by the pharmaceutical company, and everything with her husband who died, and like she has like this her stepdaughter and like all of that stuff, and like there's people stalking them and being like weird with them from the pharmaceutical company. Then we have obviously Marissa and Matthew and their relationship, and that she slept with somebody else and all of that. We have like all of their marital problems, all of their issues, their son, like everything with that. Then we have like Marissa's assistant, and her assistant pretty much like stalking her and like trying to mimic her and like lying about where she's living and like saying that she's in school, and when she like, or saying that she like ended up like, the roommate said, oh, maybe she's in class, and Marissa didn't even remember her ever saying that she was taking classes. And then she said something about being like in real estate, when the only other person we know that's in real estate is Natalie, who is Marissa's Matthew's like ex-girlfriend or whatever, that like he always talks about or something, whatever. She like made her kid go to the same school as them and everything. Then we have everything with the note, with like, you know, Marissa getting stalked, and like she thinks that it's her, the guy that she slept with, but she also is like, wait, that doesn't make sense, because like, you know, like she asked him if they could talk about things, and he said like, oh, because Avery wanted her to, this is getting so confusing, and this is genuinely how I feel about this book. Like, if you're following along and you're like, wait, what's going on? Like, that's how I feel reading it. Like, too much is going on. There's too many things happening. But anyways, like, then there's also everything with like the stalking, and she thinks like the letters and stuff to Marissa, and she thinks that it's like the husband or the guy that she slept with, but the therapist told her to like reach out to him and tell him like, hey, stop stalking me. And when she did, he was like, yeah, that's cool, like we can talk, but I'm in LA. So like, clearly it's not him, right? So now we have to deal with that. So there's like 5 main big issues and mysteries and stuff, and it's almost like it's just doing too much. It's trying to do too much. There's too much going on. So I'm getting a little confused. It's definitely like just keeps adding on all these things where I'm like, wait, now that's a new mystery I have to like be concerned with and stuff. Like, it's honestly like doing the most right now. So that's my check-in. I'm gonna listen to it and try to just listen to as much as I can today, just to kind of get in, but I will phone check in with you guys when I have more thoughts. So much is happening, and like, it's fine, but it's just like a lot. So the husband just got attacked by somebody, a man. The therapist found out that the assistant is stalking the husband. Oh, and then the therapist is getting like investigated because she thinks the pharmaceutical company like sent in an anonymous tip that she like euthanized her husband, or like helped kill her husband when he had cancer, which isn't the case, but she thinks that they're doing that just to like try to get her in trouble, and so they're like coming for her. That whole storyline is so unnecessary to me, unless they somehow all wrap together in the end, which I don't know about that. But if they somehow like all wrap together in the end or something, unless they do, then this whole like pharmaceutical side story is so confusing to me and makes like almost no sense. See, that's the thing though, like if they end up being connected, then I feel like that's gonna be really like, that's gonna be so like way too far-fetched for me. Like, if the therapist's issues with all of the pharmaceutical things somehow ends up being connected, then that's gonna be like too convenient and too far-fetched and like really unrealistic to me. But also, if they end up not being connected, then I feel like there's no point. So like right now, like there's no point to the pharmaceutical thing. I guess just to show that she like has her own life and she's dealing with her own shit and stuff, and to have like a mystery on that side too. Since we do get her POV, I guess it makes it interesting because there's a lot going on. But right now for me, there's almost too much going on. But yeah, the husband just got assaulted. They're trying to like, they think that it's like, they're all just assuming that it's somebody that he like fired last year or something, which just brings up this whole other thing. But you know, it's got to be either the person that gave him, like, is stalking the wife and like gave her the note and stuff, or I don't know, that's my only assumption. But it's just weird because the person that she slept with is one of their like family friends, and he said that he was going to, or one of their friends from like childhood, and he said that he's like in LA all week. So I just find it weird that I find it very hard to believe that he would give her the note and that he would beat up one of his best friends like that. Like, you already slept with my wife, why are you coming for me now? We've only seen him like a couple times, but he just like was texting her like, hey, I can't stop thinking about you and stuff like that. So I find it hard to believe that he would like just casually text her like that. and then also go to these extremes. I'm finding that very hard to believe. I don't even know where I'm at. I think I'm like 65%, I think. But so far, like, again, not a lot. It's like there's so many different plot points and so much going on, but at the same time, it's like not a lot is actually happening. It's very strange. I'm not a huge fan of the writing style, and honestly, like, the last 2 books I read from them, I wasn't the biggest fan of the writing style either, so maybe it's time I, like, give up on them. We'll see how this one goes, but I don't know. So we just got another twist. It was okay, so the twist itself was pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. This is like not trying to focus on me right now. Okay, so the twist itself was pretty good. Like, it was a pretty good twist. So the therapist was getting like frustrated because she kept asking the wife, like, hey, just tell me the name of the guy you slept with, because like I said, she gets like overboard involved in her clients' lives. So she is like stalking them now pretty much, and like trying to figure out everything in their life. Like, that's her, remember, that's like her special technique or her method or whatever. And the wife keeps like ignoring her and ghosting her and is like, I'm not gonna tell you that. So she goes to the house, to their house, and she pulls in like right as the wife pulls in, and they meet outside. And she's like, hey, I just want to like talk to you, you know, because you're not like telling me that info I need to like hear. And the wife is like kind of distressed, and so she's like running in to go see like the husband and her son. And so she's like running in, and all of a sudden there's this guy there who is like drinking wine with the husband. And the husband's like, oh, like Avery, like the therapist. He's like, you're here too, like this must be the night of like unexpected guests. And she's like, hi, yeah, I guess, whatever. The 2 women show up, and it's the guy that the therapist had been seeing. The security guy. She's like, wait, how do you know them? This can't be a coincidence. And I stopped listening to like check in right before, because I wanted you guys to have like my reaction to the twist. But yeah, so it was the guy that she had been like sleeping with, and she's like, I'm just trying to figure out how they know each other. Like, this can't be a coincidence, because right after she started sleeping with that guy is right when she said like only like 2 weeks later is when the Marissa called her and as to like take her on as a client. I do think the execution of this twist wasn't the best. Like, yeah, it was interesting. I kind of was like, oh shit, like when she was like, wait, it's the guy I've been sleeping with. But I don't know, it's still just maybe because too much is going on that it didn't get me the way that I felt like it should have. Like, it didn't hit me the way that it should have, I felt like. But we shall see. So that is my check-in, my 70% check-in. Okay, so I am almost done with this book, but I wanted to do like a live reaction to the last 2 chapters. But first, we need to talk about what's happened. Okay, so I am editing right now, and I realized that I totally forgot to say I forgot to say a huge twist of something that happened, and it makes the next clip not make any sense. I told you about how when they got to the house, Marissa and Avery got to the house, Skip was there, who's the guy that Avery had been sleeping with, the guy who like came out of her room, her office and stuff like that. And he was there, so she was like trying to figure out how they're connected. So what I forgot to mention though was that when I kept reading, we find out a huge twist that Skip is actually their childhood friend, the same childhood friend that Marissa slept with. So kind of weird, but Avery and Marissa have both slept with Skip, and so there has to be some sort of weird connection there, and that's what we find out, is pretty much that they're the same guy. That's the guy that she did sleep with, was Skip, the same guy that the therapist did. So we're still just like finding out like more about their lives still at this point, which I thought was kind of strange. So we find out that back when they were kids, when they were all hanging out, like him, the husband Matthew, the wife Marissa, and then Skip, the guy that the childhood friend that she like cheated on her husband with, we find out that they like used to get together all the time at, like on summers and like whatever, and have these bonfires and all this stuff. There was this friend that they all had, this mutual friend. She tried to find her worth through men, ultimately. Somehow that like ended up getting her in trouble or something like that, or she was taken advantage of and she ended up being murdered. And so this is brought on at like the 70% mark or something, and they're just talking about it, and you're kind of like you know it's gonna have to mean something because it was brought up so late, and they made it seem so relevant. So then a teacher of theirs, an English teacher, ended up being put away for this crime. But because it was brought up, you have to know that one of them is the one who murdered her. Like, you just have to know. Otherwise, it would be completely irrelevant. So you know it means something. And there's no way that that could be a red herring, because it wasn't even trying to make you think some type of way. It was just literally telling you, like, hey, this happened, and so you know that it means something and that it's going somewhere. Like, it's not going to be like the end of the book and they're going to be like, yeah, and by the way, that murder we randomly brought up really was the school teacher. Matthew's dad, he has a really estranged relationship with him, and he randomly starts popping up back in his life, and he's kind of a sketchy guy, so you're a little, like, concerned about him. And then there's the assistant, there's Natalie, there's Skip. There's so many characters, and you can tell they're really trying to twist you and get you thinking, like, in all these red herrings, and have you be like, oh, is it this person, is it this person, is it this person? But they almost did too much, and instead it's just almost overwhelming. So some really, like, creepy stuff has happened. Marissa and Matthew are chilling the night before their anniversary, because Matthew has, like, a big surprise for his anniversary with Marissa. He told Avery he bought a boat for her, and they're, like, gonna go out on the water or something. So they get back to the house, and Marissa finds, like, their son actually finds, like, a thing, like, I don't know what it's called, a roll of wintergreen lifesavers, which apparently is what Skip always, like, is chewing on, and they found it in Matthew's office. So then they're like, oh, he must have been like diving around in your office when he was here last night. Like, that's really creepy. The, like, office window was open, which they don't keep open because he has, like, some special painting in his office, like a Picasso or something like that, like a hand-drawn Picasso or something, that can't get moisture in it or can't get wet. So they never open the window to the office, but they were saying that it would be the easiest one to break into. So now we're all like, ooh, did Skip break into the house? But I knew, like, that's what sucks about stuff like this, is that it's a good, like, it's intriguing to think about, right? You're like, ooh, like, that is kind of, like, you know, like, a good little, that's a good, like, option. But I feel like it's too, you know, while reading it, with the way that their writing style is, you know that it's not what the what actually, like, the case is. Like, just based on their writing style. And this is a writing style thing, because there are a lot of thriller authors that set, you know, the scene up so well that you're like, oh my god, I think this is it. Or you're like, wow, like, this is a possibility. But with their writing style, it's almost like, you know, it's too convenient, so you know that it's not true. Like, it's not what's going to happen. You know there's more coming. So that's something I really dislike about the writing style. It's just that you could tell when something was not, you know, how it was actually gonna go down. You know what I mean? Marissa and Matthew, their son is upstairs. They're in the kitchen, and they're just, like, enjoying the night before their wedding. They're about to drink, they're, you know, drinking some wine and stuff, whatever. Simultaneously, at, like, the same time, Avery is on a run, and she gets back to her car, and Skip is at her car. And she notices that Skip is wearing the gloves that they, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, pretty much that note that was left at Marissa's business. They got on the security camera, and they found out that it was from the, they found out that the guy who dropped it off was a homeless guy who's just, like, always, like, posted up at the corner of the street. And when Marissa went to go confront him, he was wearing gloves, the exact same gloves that she had given to Skip that Christmas, that previous Christmas. So she was like, oh my god, like, it was Skip who dropped off the thing, and he must have been the one who did the roses at the very beginning of the book, and, like, with the winter greens, and with that, with the break-in, and with the, you know, the gloves and everything. She was like, it's Skip that's stalking me. And so her and Matthew were in the kitchen, and they're, like, talking about, like, I think, you know, they're talking about a restraining order at one point, I think, with Avery, and, like, they're just talking about getting him out of their lives. Matthew calls him, and this is all going on when they're in the kitchen. Simultaneously, Avery gets back from her run, Skip is there, and she notices that he's wearing the gloves. He's wearing the gloves that Marissa got him for Christmas, and he's there to talk to her about how he doesn't think that Marissa is, like, safe. And at the exact, like, Avery said that when she saw the gloves, everything instantly clicked. That the only other person that would know, really, that Marissa got those gloves for Skip for Christmas is Matthew. So they go to the house, they plan, they make a little like, you know, a little heist plan, because she's like, we can't just like bust in, you can't go through the gate since you know the code, because he's gonna expect that, like we gotta do all this. So he breaks into the office and she goes around back with the code. So we're like, okay, they're like about to break into this house, right? So then we get back to Marissa's perspective. And she's like, why do I feel really uncomfortable? He's like, you know, Matthew's like, do you want some wine? And she's like, I guess. But really, she's like, I don't want any. I don't know why she didn't just say no, but to each their own, I guess. She finds this knot. This is how random this book is to me. She finds this knot that was their son Bennett's like Cub Scouts knot that they were looking for. And she realizes that she left the knot, that Skip is the one who did the knot the night that they slept together. And that she realized when she was like picking up the house and trying to get rid of the evidence that they slept together, she realized that she left the knot out on the, like in the living room. So that's how Matthew found out. So she found the knot and she was like, I've been looking for this. She found it, I think, in his office. So this whole time she's like, oh my god, I think that he knows somehow, or maybe he doesn't know. And then there was something with like nuts, and like she doesn't eat the nuts and Bennett doesn't eat the nuts, but Matthew like eats them every day. And she said that Skip went through like almost the whole like jar. So she's like, he had to have noticed that, you know, that they're like all gone. And then the wine, there was something with like the wine that he found, the bottle of wine or something. So she's like, he has to know. So they're sitting there and he goes to pour her a glass of wine, and he pulls out a case of the wine that she drank with Skip that night. And he says something like, oh, like, it's your new favorite or something like that. And then he pulls out and gets her like a little jar of the nuts. But then she's like, do you know? And he was like, I have known since the day that I came home, the day after you guys slept together, even through therapy, like the shock of them going to therapy and then her being like, I cheated on you, and him being like, oh my god, like he knew that whole time. So he's like freaking out. He's gone psycho. So he's like, oh, he pulls out a gun, and he's like pointing it at her. And he's like, oh, like, I've known from the start, like, you've been lying to me this whole time. Like, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to kill him because I know he's going to come try to save you. I'm going to kill him, and, like, it's going to look like he killed you, and then I tried to save, like, it was, like, self-defense, you know? And so he's, like, he's got it all planned out. So he hears them they hear Skip, like, break into the office. So they go into the office, and he's, like, all planning to kill them and stuff. And then Avery this whole time broke in through the back door, and so she's behind him with a gun. There's like a ton of arguing. It goes on for like a very long time, and we find out that Matthew was the one who killed the girl from their childhood that night, because he got so much anger from her wanting Skip, because she had a crush on Skip, over him. And he said his dad always wanted Skip over him, and now Marissa always wants Skip over him, and like all of this stuff. So he's like, he said something, and I don't know if he like had sex with the girl. He said something like, oh, she thought that you were the one chasing her out to the dock or whatever, but then she looked up and she looked so disappointed, but not for long. And then he like laughed, and then Avery was like, wow, you sick bastard. So I was like, I don't know if like slept with her and then killed her, which like, oh my fucking god, or if he's just saying she didn't look disappointed for long because then he like killed her. I don't know what's being implied there, but it was messed up either way. So anyways, so we find out this whole time it's been pretty much the fucking husband, and like always, right? And Skip pretty much was trying to like save Marissa from all of this, like this whole time. He was pretty much trying to be like, make sure that she's good and like all of this stuff, because he knew that Matthew was dangerous. Also, Polly, the assistant, turns out that Matthew had asked her like, hey, like, you know, really keep an eye on Marissa and do extra stuff and like go through all of these things to always make sure she's okay. So all of her manic behavior was because Matthew told her to. He told her to like borderline be like obsessed with her and like stalk her and like make sure she's okay, be his eyes and ears on Marissa and stuff like that. So that's the reason for why the assistant was always so like, what are you doing? So anyways, they're in this peak. He goes to like shoot Skip, and Avery, you know, in perfect, everything like wraps up in a bow fashion, he goes to shoot, and Avery's behind him, bah, shoots him right in the chest. So he's laying there, all of that stuff, and that's where I'm at. I will say I definitely didn't expect it to be the husband. I thought that maybe the wife was gonna be the one who like killed the girl or something, or you know, because I was starting to get some like kind of crazy vibes from her. I definitely thought like, I didn't think it was ever going to be Skip. They were trying too hard to make it seem like Skip, so I knew it wasn't going to be. So I was very surprised to find out that it was the husband. I just think the execution with it wasn't great, to be honest. I'm going to get a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to get ready for a video, and while I get ready, I'm just going to finish off the audiobook, and I thought that it would be fun to like have the camera on so you guys can see my live reaction to the end.
She'd asked Skip just last night. He didn't blush or look down. He simply replied, "I told him the first time I kissed you, it was like the first time I saw the ocean."
What a bitch.
Skip
That's what the
hadn't asked why
husband
she burst into
said.
tears. You might think, watching them, that they're an ordinary mother, son, and grandfather enjoying a beautiful spring afternoon at the park. But the Bishops, like the rest of us, are far more complicated than they appear. I slowly walk toward them along the trail that winds through the Candy Cane City Park,
Oh yeah.
pausing every now and then.
Matthew and his dad never got along, and I wonder if his dad like knew, not that he was like a murderer, but maybe that he was like a sociopath or something.
She nodded and reached for a tissue. Do you know what some people used to call us? The golden couple. I do know. I
Ooh,
thought as I
don't you
pictured Marissa and
love
Matthew
it
gliding into my office.
when the name of the book gets mentioned.
Or casinos, the dirty political operatives who take down national candidates. Chris's name doesn't appear on Acelia's list of employees, but he's one of their most valued assets.
Wait. See, that's what I'm saying where this book just, there's too many like weird connections and stuff. So Matthew's dad, who he was like estranged with, works for the pharmaceutical company. What?
Shortly after I called in Maris, I liked and respected you too much to try and trick you into giving me information about your clients. The rest of what Skip had already told me was true. He'd begun to suspect Matthew could be dangerous, so he sent Marissa the Post article about me. He hoped I could help her see who her husband really was and break free from her marriage. At least one part of Skip's desperate plan worked.
How
Marissa did make
convenient.
an appointment to see me with her, so she did. She always covered for him. Chris knew all along what his son was capable of. I take another
See,
good
I
look at Chris,
wonder.
finally putting a face to the dark menace that has been looming over me ever since I blew the whistle on Acelia. On the back. I don't bother resetting my alarm. I'm sure I'll need it again someday, but for now, the threat against me is gone. Go get your bunny. My fierce-looking dog's favorite new toy is
But if you have a security system, why not just like use a
fluffy stuffed rabbit. Instead of chewing, held Paul's hospital bed, remembering my husband's final words to me. He mouthed them through dry, cracked lips, but they were unmistakable. I'm ready. I've been amassing morphine in preparation for the moment.
Oh, so she did kill her husband. Well, through like assisted suicide, essentially. Through what's it called? Euthanasia? Okay, so that's what, remember with the lawsuit thing, that's what she was being like, they were like saying that she did that, like that he didn't pass away naturally, so she did do that. But I completely understand that. My grandpa actually did that. It's legal in Oregon. My grandpa actually did that. He was suffering really badly, and he didn't want to like go down that path because it was only going to get worse. So he wanted to pass away while he was still in like good spirits and stuff. But so I totally get it. Are you kidding? And not much pain every day, and you just know it's going to get worse until you die. Like, I don't want to be morbid and be like, what's the point? But like, I feel like it'd be harder for your family to see you suffer, you know, like that. So
to my research, I knew exactly how much it would take and how to insert it into his. I climbed into bed with Paul and held him in my arms while the morphine seeped into his veins.
Oh my god.
He was gone by the time the record finished playing. Now I step into the center of the room and close my eyes and...
I'm such a crybaby nowadays. Like, I will cry over everything. That is so sad.
The space has so many possibilities.
Do you, girl? Do
I walk
you?
back out again. This time, leaving the door wide open.
Cute. Why are the ending of audiobooks always so turned? So it's been a couple days, so I've had some time to think about my thoughts on this book, and I'm really torn. There were a lot of twists, and it definitely had the intrigue, and it definitely kept me, you know, I guess interested in what's going on. But at the same time, I felt like everything was way too convenient, and you had to suspend your disbelief so much for this one. And just like I said in the vlog, like, I think I said, oh, if everything doesn't come together, then it's going to kind of upset me, because then everything seems like what was the point? But if all of these random things come together, it's almost going to seem like way too convenient and way too coincidental. Everything did end up coming together, and I just felt like it wasn't satisfying. But at the same time, I do feel like there were a lot of twists, and it did capture my attention. So I feel like I'm gonna have to go with 3 stars, which means every book I've read by them has been 3 stars. Glad I read this, but at the same time, like, I know there's better stuff out there, so it's kind of hard. Like, do I keep coming back to this, like, author duo that's continually average for me, or, like, sub-average even? I don't know. I think this one would be, like, yeah, like 2.5 even, maybe. 2.5, 3 stars. Because I just felt like a lot was going on, and they were trying to pull so many classic thriller tricks, like author tricks, writing tricks, and it just came off really convoluted. It came off really confusing. A lot was going on. It didn't really make sense. It was all over the place, and I just felt like they were trying to do like too much. They were trying to get you to be confused. They were trying to add in too many red herrings, and it just ended up making it super confusing and kind of unenjoyable. So I would say 2.53 is going to be like my final rating, just because I think there were some good twists. It had an intriguing enough plot line, but I also felt like they were trying to do way too much, and everything with the pharmaceutical company thing, that was unnecessary to me. Even with the ending being like, oh, it was Matthew's dad the whole time or whatever, like, nah, like, it was doing too much, and it wasn't a satisfying ending. But thank you guys for watching this video and coming along with me on my reading experience with The Golden Couple. If you read this book, let me know your thoughts on it down below. It is its release date when this video is coming out, so you know, if you feel like it or if it sounds intriguing and you haven't read it, I just spoiled the whole thing for you. But if you want to read it for yourself, definitely go pick it up. Yeah, let's talk about it down below. I had a lot of fun doing that with the last Thrill Seeker, kind of talking about the book in depth. That's why I love dedicated spoiler-filled videos, because I feel like we get to have better discussions about them. Subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Like the video if you did like it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!